If someone had told Linda that a simple trip to the market would change her life forever, she would have laughed in their face. But life, as they say, has a way of hiding fire under cold ashes. That Saturday morning, the sun was shining, the birds were singing, and Linda had only one thing on her mind: buying fresh tomatoes and fish for the weekend. She tied her wrapper tightly around her waist, picked up her shopping basket, and kissed her husband, James, on the cheek. "I'm off to the market," she said, smiling. James barely looked up from his phone. "All right, don't be long." Linda chuckled. "Since when did you start caring about market time?" James smirked. "Since I realized you take 5 hours just to buy onions." Linda laughed as she stepped out. If only she knew that by the time she returned, her whole world would be turned upside down. The market was busy as usual, women shouting prices, children running around, and the sweet aroma of roasted corn filling the air. Linda greeted a few familiar faces and walked straight to her favorite tomato seller. She was about to pay when she heard a voice behind her, one that made her blood freeze. "Daddy, I want that one." Linda turned slowly, the way one does when they sense danger but are not sure if they should run or fight. And there he was. James. Holding the hand of a small girl, no older than 5. A woman stood beside him, smiling. A woman Linda had never seen before. Her heart stopped. Her brain refused to process what her eyes were seeing. James. Her James. In the market. With a child. And another woman. Linda blinked. Maybe her eyes were playing tricks on her. Maybe it was someone who looked like James. But then she heard it. The little girl pulled James's shirt and said the words that shattered Linda's world into tiny, sharp pieces. "Daddy, are we going home now?" Linda felt her knees go weak. The ground beneath her feet became unsteady. A sharp ringing filled her ears. "Daddy?" She wanted to laugh. To scream. To run. To disappear. But all she could do was stand there, staring at the man she thought she knew. James turned, and when his eyes met Linda's, all the color drained from his face. He had been caught. Right there. In the middle of the market. And there was no escape. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The market noise faded into a distant hum. It was just Linda, James, the woman, and the little girl, trapped in an invisible circle of silence. James opened his mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. His lips moved, his eyes darted around like a trapped animal, and his hand tightened around the little girl's fingers. Linda swallowed hard. Her voice felt stuck in her throat, but she forced the words out. "James, who is this?" James blinked rapidly, his mind clearly running in 1,000 directions. The woman beside him looked between them, her eyebrows slowly knitting together. And then, as if the gods wanted to confirm Linda's worst fear, the little girl spoke again. "Daddy, why is this woman looking at you like that?" "Daddy." That word again. A heavy silence fell. Even the tomato seller, who had been shouting prices moments ago, was now watching with wide eyes. Linda took a shaky step forward. "James, answer me. Who is this?" James cleared his throat. "Linda, listen, I can explain." "Explain what?" Her voice was shaking now, but not from fear. From anger. From betrayal. "James, I am your wife. Who is this woman? Who is this child calling you daddy?" The woman beside him finally spoke. Her voice was cautious, uncertain. "Excuse me, but who are you?" Linda let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Me? Who am I?" "That is what I should be asking you." The woman's face darkened. "I don't understand what's going on here." James quickly turned to her. "Rita, let's go. I'll explain later." Rita. The name hit Linda like a slap. So the woman even had a name? Linda felt something burn inside her chest. She had never been in a fight before, but at that moment, She understood why some women threw punches first and asked questions later. "James, you are not going anywhere," Linda snapped. "Not until you tell me who this woman is." James wiped his forehead. The man was sweating like a thief caught with stolen meat. "Linda, please, not here," he begged, lowering his voice. "Let's go home and talk." "Talk?" Linda let out another laugh. "You want to talk? James, you have another woman and a child, and you think we can just go home and talk?" At this point, the market women had started gathering. If there's one thing people love more than shopping, it's a good scandal. "Ah. Sister, what's happening?" one of them asked. "My dear, I don't even know," Linda said, shaking her head. "I just came to buy tomatoes, and now I have discovered my husband's second family." A loud murmur spread through the crowd. The gossip had started. One of the older market women clapped her hands together. "Anne? James, is this true? You have another family?" James rubbed his face. His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He looked at Linda, then at Rita, then back at Linda. "James," Rita said sharply. "What is she talking about?" James grabbed Rita's hand. "Please, let's go." But before they could move, Linda stepped in front of them. "James, if you walk away, I swear, I will make sure the whole world hears about this." The market women shouted in agreement. "Yes. He must talk. We want to hear." James groaned. He was trapped. Then, Rita pulled her hand from his grip. "James, answer me now. Who is this woman?" Linda folded her arms, waiting. And then, James made the mistake of his life. He sighed, rubbed his head, and mumbled, She's nobody." Silence. For the first time in her life, Linda felt her heart shatter into a million pieces. Nobody? She, the woman who had cooked for him, washed his clothes, prayed for him, loved him. She was nobody? A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. Nobody? James realized his mistake too late. "No, Linda, that's not what I meant." Linda turned to the crowd. "Everybody, did you hear that? I am nobody." The market women exploded. "Ah. James, you are wicked. After all this woman has done for you? You will not go unpunished." James looked desperate now. He tried to reach for Linda, but she stepped back. "Linda, please, let's go home and talk." "You have nothing to say to me, James," she cut him off. "You called me nobody. So I will show you what a nobody can do." Rita was staring at James like she had seen a ghost. "James, are you married to this woman?" she asked slowly. James hesitated. And that was all the answer she needed. Rita let out a sharp gasp, grabbed the little girl's hand, and took a step back. "Oh my God. You're a married man?" "Rita, listen, I can explain." She slapped him. Right there, in front of the entire market. The sound echoed like thunder. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing. James staggered back, holding his cheek. Rita's eyes were blazing. "You lied to me? You told me you were single." The crowd went wild. The gossip had turned into a full-blown movie. Linda smiled bitterly. "Welcome to my world, Rita." Rita shook her head, grabbed her daughter, and stormed off. James looked lost, broken. He turned to Linda, his eyes pleading. "Linda, please." But Linda had had enough. She picked up her shopping basket, turned on her heels, and walked away. And the whole market cheered. Linda walked out of the market like a queen leaving a battlefield. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just walked. But inside, her heart was breaking. Nobody. That word kept repeating in her mind like a cursed song. After everything, James had called her nobody. The man she had loved, trusted, and built a life with had thrown her away like she was nothing. Her feet moved, but she didn't know where she was going. The market noise faded behind her. faces blurred. It was like she was floating in a dream, a bad dream she couldn't wake up from. She didn't even realize she had reached home until she stood in front of their house, staring at the door. This was the house she and James had built together. The house where they had laughed, shared meals, and planned for the future. A future that was now a lie. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the door. The moment she stepped inside, everything hit her at once. The pain. The betrayal. The shame. Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the couch. And then, the tears came. Heavy, uncontrollable sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for the years she had wasted. She cried for the love she had given so freely. She cried because, in that market, in front of everyone, her husband had made her feel like she didn't matter. How had she been so blind? How long had James been living this double life? And the worst part? She had found out by accident. If she hadn't gone to the market that day, would he have ever told her? Or would he have continued pretending, coming home every night, kissing her like everything was normal? A painful laugh escaped her lips. Ah, men. A snake may shed its skin, but it is still a snake. She wiped her tears and sat up. No. She was not going to sit here and drown in pain. James had fooled her, but she would not let him break her. Just then, the door swung open. James. Linda's body tensed. Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to stay calm. James stepped in, his face full of regret. Linda, please, let's talk. She said nothing. He walked closer. I know I messed up. I swear, I didn't mean for you to find out like that. Linda let out a bitter laugh. Oh? So what was your plan, James? To keep lying to me forever? James sighed. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, Linda snapped. You lied. You betrayed me. And then, in front of all those people, you called me nobody. James ran a hand through his hair. I was panicking. I didn't mean it. You didn't mean it? Linda scoffed. James, that was the one moment you told the truth. That was exactly how you see me. As nobody. Silence. James's shoulders dropped. I swear, I love you, Linda. Linda stared at him. Love? This man was standing in front of her, talking about love? Do you even know what love is? She asked quietly. James opened his mouth, but no words came. Linda shook her head. Love is honesty. Love is respect. Love is choosing one person and being faithful to them. But you? You have another woman, another child, and you lied to both of us. James looked away, ashamed. Linda took a deep breath. Tell me the truth now. How long have you been with her? James hesitated. Tell me, James. He sighed. 6 years. The room spun. 6 years? Linda's chest tightened. She had been married to him for 8 years. That meant James had been cheating on her for almost their entire marriage. Linda gripped the armrest to steady herself. And the child? Is she yours? James nodded. A sharp pain shot through Linda's heart. James had a child with another woman. And he had kept it a secret for 5 years. She closed her eyes. Linda, please, let's fix this, James begged. I still love you. Linda opened her eyes slowly. Love? You don't love me, James. You love the fact that I was stupid enough to trust you. James took a step forward, but she raised a hand. Don't. He froze. Linda wiped her tears. You have broken something that can never be fixed. But I don't want to lose you. Linda let out a slow, tired sigh. James, you already did. James's face crumpled. Please, just give me a chance. The door suddenly burst open. Linda and James both turned. And standing there was Rita. And she did not come alone. Behind her stood 3 angry-looking men. James's eyes widened. Rita? Rita folded her arms. Yes, James. You didn't think I would let you walk away so easily, did you? James swallowed hard. What are you doing here? Rita stepped inside, her eyes blazing. I came for what belongs to me. Linda frowned. And what exactly is that? Rita turned to her. The money. Linda blinked. What money? Rita let out a bitter laugh. Oh, my dear sister, didn't you know? Your beloved husband has been giving me money for years. And now that I know he is a liar, I want everything, every single penny he promised me. James shifted uncomfortably. Rita, let's not do this here. Rita snapped her fingers, and the 3 men stepped forward. Oh, we are doing this here, James. Right now. Linda stared at James. Wait, so after betraying me, you were also spending our money on her? James rubbed his forehead. Linda, please. But Linda wasn't listening anymore. Her blood was boiling. You know what, Rita, she said calmly. Take everything you want from him. He is all yours. James's head snapped up. Linda, don't say that. But Linda was done. She walked past him, opened the door wide, and looked at Rita. Take him. And when he cheats on you, don't say I didn't warn you. Rita smirked. Oh, I'm not here for him. I just want my money. James turned pale. Rita, we can talk about this. One of the men cracked his knuckles. No need to talk. Just pay up. Linda didn't wait to see what happened next. She grabbed her bag, stepped outside, and took a deep breath. For the first time in years, she felt free. The man she had loved was a lie. Her marriage was over. But she would be just fine. And as she walked away, she smiled. Because one thing was certain. She was not nobody. She was Linda. And she was stronger than she had ever known. Linda walked away from the house, her heart pounding, but her mind was clear. She was done. Done crying. Done begging. Done being fooled. The air outside felt different, lighter. Like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She had spent years thinking James was her rock, her protector. But in reality, he had been a snake sleeping beside her, waiting for the right time to bite. Well, he had bitten. And now, he would taste the consequences. As she walked, she heard shouting from inside the house. Rita and her hired men were giving James a proper lesson. Linda didn't care to stay and watch. James had made his bed, now, he would lie in it, whether comfortably or on thorns was none of her business. Linda. She turned to see her neighbor, Auntie Grace, hurrying toward her, wrapper tied tightly around her waist. My sister, what happened? Auntie Grace asked, breathing hard. I heard shouting. Did James bring another woman to the house? Linda let out a tired laugh. Auntie Grace, James did not bring another woman to the house. He brought her into my entire life. Auntie Grace gasped. You mean? Ah. She clapped her hands. Men will not kill us in this world. What did you do? Linda smiled, but it was not a happy smile. I left. Auntie Grace grabbed her hand. You mean just like that? What should I have done? Stay and let him keep deceiving me? Auntie Grace sighed. My sister, I will not lie to you, what James did is wicked. But you must be strong. A woman is like a pot of water, if she breaks, she must gather herself again. Linda nodded. And that is exactly what I will do. Auntie Grace studied her face for a moment, then smiled. I like this new fire in you. Let's go to my house. You need food and rest. Linda hesitated, but then her stomach grumbled. She hadn't even realized how hungry she was. She had left her house, left James, left everything behind, and she didn't even know where to go. But one thing she knew for sure, she was not going back. Sitting in Auntie Grace's house, a warm plate of jollof rice in front of her, Linda took a deep breath. "So, what's next?" Auntie Grace asked, scooping a spoonful of rice into her mouth. Linda stared at her plate. What was next? She had spent so many years as James's wife that she had forgotten how to be just Linda. But one thing was clear, she had to start over. "I need a job," she said finally. Auntie Grace nodded. "That's true. Are you going back to your old workplace?" Linda shook her head. "I can't. James made me quit when we got married." Auntie Grace sucked her teeth. "Ah. That man wanted to control you completely." Linda sighed. "And I let him." Auntie Grace reached over and squeezed her hand. "But not anymore." Linda nodded. "Not anymore." That night, as she lay on the small mattress in Auntie Grace's spare room, she thought about everything. Her marriage was over. Her life was about to change completely. And for the first time in a long time, she was excited. Because this time, she was in control. The next morning, Linda woke up feeling lighter. The pain was still there, but it wasn't crushing her like before. She stretched and sat up, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood waking up, the clatter of pots, children laughing, a radio playing an old song in the distance. Auntie Grace's voice came from outside. "Linda. Come and eat before you start your day." Linda smiled. Auntie Grace was one of those women who believed that food could solve every problem. And maybe she was right. As Linda stepped outside, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, peace. "Good morning, Auntie," she greeted, sitting on the wooden bench outside the house. Auntie Grace placed a steaming plate of yam and egg stew in front of her. "Eat, my dear. Food first, stress later." Linda chuckled and picked up her spoon. "So, what's the plan?" Auntie Grace asked. Linda sighed. "I need to find work. I can't just sit around and cry over James." Auntie Grace nodded. "That's the spirit. But do you have any ideas?" Linda bit her lip. She had studied business administration in school, but James had convinced her to be a full-time housewife. Now, she had nothing, no savings, no job, nothing. Auntie Grace noticed her hesitation and smiled. "You know, you are a good cook. Why don't you start small? Maybe sell food?" Linda looked up. "Sell food?" "Yes. People must eat." "And you? You cook better than most restaurant chefs." Linda thought about it. It wasn't a bad idea. She loved cooking. And she needed to start making money quickly. "You think it will work?" she asked. Auntie Grace clapped her hands. "Ah. My dear, in this life, if you don't try, you will never know. Start small, and before you know it, people will be lining up for your food." Linda smiled. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. Later that day, Linda took the little money she had and went to the market to buy ingredients. As she walked through the market, she couldn't help but remember what had happened here just the day before. The betrayal. The shame. The humiliation. But she kept her head high. Let people talk. She had no time for gossip, she was rebuilding her life. She bought rice, vegetables, spices, and some plastic food containers. If she was going to start this business, she had to do it right. When she got back, Auntie Grace was waiting for her. "You are serious about this, eh?" she asked, eyeing the bags of ingredients. Linda smiled. "I have no choice. A river that refuses to flow will only become a breeding ground for mosquitoes." Auntie Grace laughed. "Ah. That's the spirit." That evening, Linda cooked her first batch of food, jollof rice, fried plantain, and grilled chicken. The smell filled the house, and soon, even neighbors were peeping in to see what was happening. "Linda, this food smells too good," one of them said. "Are you selling?" Linda exchanged a look with Auntie Grace. Yes, I am. And just like that, her first customer was secured. Days turned into weeks. Linda's small food business started growing. At first, she was selling to just a few neighbors, but word spread fast. Soon, people from other streets were coming to buy her food. "Ah, this is the best jollof I have tasted," one customer said. "Linda, you must be using some kind of magic in this food," another joked. Linda would laugh, but deep down, she knew this wasn't magic. It was determination. Every day, she worked hard. Woke up early to cook, sold food all afternoon, and planned new recipes at night. And slowly, money started coming in. One evening, as she counted her earnings, Auntie Grace smiled at her. "See? Didn't I tell you? A woman who knows how to rise will never stay on the ground for long." Linda nodded. "I'm not stopping here, Auntie. I want to expand. Maybe even open a small restaurant one day." Auntie Grace clapped her hands. "That's the energy. Keep pushing, my dear." Linda smiled. She had thought James's betrayal would destroy her. But look at her now. She was building something of her own. And for the first time in a long time, she felt truly alive. 1 month had passed since Linda walked away from James. 1 month since she had stood in that market, shattered and humiliated. But now, look at her. She was no longer that broken woman. She was strong, independent, and making her own money. Her small food business had grown faster than she expected. At first, she was just selling from Auntie Grace's house, but soon, the demand was too high. She had to find a better location. That was how she ended up renting a small wooden stall near the bus station. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. Every morning, she woke up early, cooked with love, and served her customers with a smile. And the people kept coming. "Linda, your food is a blessing from heaven." "Ah. Even my wife's cooking cannot compete." "Madam, please, add extra meat. Your stew is too sweet." Every day, she sold out. And every night, she went to bed tired but satisfied. She was no longer James's wife. She was Linda, the businesswoman. The survivor. One afternoon, as she was serving food, she saw him. James. Standing across the street, watching her. Her heart skipped a beat, but she quickly looked away and continued serving customers. If James thought she would run back to him, he was dreaming. But he didn't leave. He just stood there. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Finally, when the crowd reduced, he crossed the road and walked up to her stall. "Linda," he said softly. She didn't look at him. "If you're here for food, you have to pay like everyone else." James sighed. "I just want to talk." Linda wiped her hands and folded her arms. "Talk? About what? How you lied to me for 6 years? How you called me nobody?" James rubbed his face. "I was a fool, Linda. I lost everything. Rita took all my money and left me." Linda almost laughed. "Oh? So now you remember me?" James looked down. "I don't expect you to forgive me. But I just want to say, I'm sorry." Linda stared at him for a long moment. Then, she shook her head and smiled. Not a bitter smile, not an angry one, just a smile of understanding. "James," she said softly, "a broken pot can be mended, but it will never hold water the same way again." James swallowed hard. "I know. You made your choices," Linda continued. "And I made mine. And I choose to move forward. Without you." James nodded slowly, his eyes filled with regret. "I wish you happiness, Linda." Linda nodded. "I already have it." James gave her one last look, then turned and walked away. She watched him go, not with sadness, but with peace. This was her closure. Her final goodbye. She took a deep breath, turned back to her stall and smiled as her next customer approached. Life had given her lemons, but she had made the sweetest lemonade. And she was just getting started. That's the end of Linda's journey. She walked through fire and came out stronger. What do you think? Would you have forgiven James? Let me know in the comments.